Hello boys, so this is a short video to explain a little bit about how you can map out your patterns. So what we're trying to do here is get clarity on an old way of being, an old pattern that we're seeing in our life, why it's going on, getting clarity around what's really happening, and then map out a new way of showing up, a way that feels more expansive, feels more like us, that amplifies an aspect of self, an aspect of the man that we feel called to become, that we're looking to bring into the world. I promise you this is a simple method and pretty straightforward. However, it may take a couple of times watching this video for you to really get it to sink in. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to divide your page into 4 quadrants. Okay, so just putting a big line in the middle, big line across there. The lower 2 sections are going to represent our inner world. The above 2 sections are going to represent our outer world. So that's the things that we do, the things that you can see, the actions we take. The right hand side of your page is going to represent being self-led, the action that we want to take, the feelings that we want to feel. And the left side is going to represent the ways in which we show up, where we're led by things that don't feel like us, who we are in our higher self, in our most authentic or uninhibited being. That's going to become a little bit more clear as we go on. At the top of the left-hand side, you're going to write parts led, and on the top of the right-hand side here, self-led, and then on the top side, you're labeling that outer, so everything that you can see, that's your actions, and then on the bottom, we're labeling that inner. The first thing that I want you to do as we come to map out what's going on is to notice an area of your life or an aspect of self that you are feeling like you would love to work on. And that might look to you like a place you're struggling, where there's difficulty, where you can feel it's a bit sticky, where you've been battling with it for a long time or recently. Or a place where you feel like you want to amplify, you want to maximize, you feel like, yeah, I want to step into my power in this aspect of my life. When you have that, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get clarity on what is it that we're moving towards, like what is it we want. Often when we come to set our goals, or we're talking about the things that we have in our life, the results, the circumstances, the experience, we're talking about what we don't want. I don't want to be so stressed. I don't want to be so shy in social situations. But we need to get something that creates a North Star for us, something that inspires us, something that we can move towards. You might notice it's like an action, something you're doing, or it could be like something you feel in yourself. I invite you to think about how it feels in your body. What aspect of the man that you want to be does that represent? So for me, for example, I'm going to choose reliability. That's something I want to work on. I want to get more reliable. I want to be able to be a man of my word. I want to show up for the things that I say I'll do and follow through on my projects. I've halved that box, that lower box, which is everything that's internal, to 2. I've written vision here, and I've written feelings here. What I've written for my vision is I am a reliable man. Confident in my word, I can trust myself to follow through on my commitments and agreements with myself and others. Feelings of confidence, joy, strength, masculinity, self-trust, self-respect, and ultimately integrity. I am going to invite you to get very specific about the thing that you want to do. So this could be a project, this could be a conversation. Think about the specific things in your life, rather than general, keeping it vague as I've done, that you could say that you completed, that you made happen by the end of the month. So that could look like reading a certain amount of books, meditating for a number of times or a number of minutes, putting on a certain weight or taking off a certain weight. It could be completing the first draft of a book, something that you can say, tick, I did, or cross, I didn't do. Then you're going to ask yourself, what does that man do? What are the actions that he takes? What are the behaviors that people would see him doing? So if you're looking at him on like a film screen, what do we see him doing? How is he showing up in a way that reflects this quality? What I've written here in those actions are He has a consistent exercise routine, eats healthily and consistently, follows through on his agreements to meet up with others, hits his work targets without fail, doesn't overpromise or get prematurely excited by new ideas, honors his truth, doesn't just say what he thinks people want to hear. Really look at what behaviors you want to display through the embodiment of this quality. But damn, we're not always how we want to be. Sometimes we are a little bit further from the man that we can sense inside of us than we would like to admit. And so now we're going to get an idea of what is the pattern that plays out when you're not playing out this pattern that you're looking to create in your life. So you're going to shift over to the other top hand side there, and that is going to be the upper half, right? So it's all the actions, behaviors, but it's the upper half of the parts-led self. So the part of you that isn't your higher self, that's showing up, perhaps a younger part of you who's still in the driving seat of your life. What does this part of you do that you're looking to change and repattern? I want to invite you to fill out just the top half of this, as we're going to need the bottom half for some more writing in a bit. You'll see why. So what I've written here is that this man cancels, reschedules, misses dates and meetings that he's organized or agreed upon. He's lenient with timings and deadlines. He's late to certain appointments or delivery of work, inconsistent with routines, diets, or habits, and doesn't follow through on ideas and projects. What I'm going to then have a look at is what's behind that action. What am I thinking, feeling? What's the vision that makes me then like not want to do those things? Like when I'm in those moments, when I'm playing out a pattern, what's really going on for me? What's happening behind the action that I'm taking? As I've written on the left hand side of the page, that second half of the bottom section, which is the internal world, the feelings title here, I've written down what I feel when that pattern comes out, when I go to do the thing that I want to do, or I think about doing it, and then I get this feeling inside of me that I'm trying to avoid, that I don't like. So what I feel when I try to move towards the completion of getting my course done, my online course, is I feel worried about not being able to do it. I feel a fear of not being capable. I feel scared that I don't know what I'm doing and I can't, and it's this feeling of like I'm not good enough to be able to do it. I'm not smart enough. I don't know. And then I'm like also worried about saying no to other people and other things. So when I'm invited to do things, I kind of take on too much. So I can notice that I'm scared about letting people down. Ironically, I create that pattern by taking on too much and then letting them down later. But I'm scared about saying no to people, and I'm scared about missing out. So they invite me to do something when I know I've got too much on already, or I don't think about it because I feel afraid of missing out on that opportunity. And also when I have other things to do, I can notice there's a pattern in me that feels stressed when I feel like I need to do this thing now because I'm not gonna remember to do it, or I mistrust myself that I'm going to be able to do everything that I want to do. So I just kind of do it when I have the impulse, and then I actually don't prioritize the things that I really want to get done. So the feelings that show up in this pattern are those. What I'm going to do then is jump up and go to what I do when I feel these things. So this is the internal world, this is the external world of my actions, my behaviors. So when I feel this, what do I do then? And what I've got here then is like when I feel worried and stressed and fearful about not being able to, and about missing out, and about disappointing others, I procrastinate on Instagram. I do other tasks that are like, you know, those pseudo important tasks. I make it not matter to me. I'm like, oh, whatever, you know, it's maybe not just like the thing that I want to do. I have this like pura vida self-defense mechanism that I'm like, whatever, man, it'll work out. I doubt whether it's actually worth it. I kind of have this cost benefit analysis of like, should I actually do it? And then I convince myself that it's something not worth doing. It's not going to work out in the way I think it will, and so there's no point even trying anyway. Or I always say yes to people when I'm worried about disappointing them. I'll just say like what I think they want to hear, and I'll keep myself unclear. I'll create self-doubt in me about what is really important for me, so that I don't have to then take action on it, so that I can be like, oh, I don't know, yeah, sure, I'll just do that. What I'm going to do again is I'm going to bounce back down to how I feel when I'm doing that stuff. So, you know, when I'm procrastinating, when I'm just saying yes to whoever, when I'm keeping myself unclear, then how does that make me feel? What comes up is feelings of self-doubt, self-criticism. It's really important here that you get very specific about your thoughts and feelings. So writing down the things that you hear in your head, the thoughts that you have. So for me, that's like, I'm a man child, I can't do it, I'll never be a reliable man. And there's feelings then of shame and inferiority. Like I look to those figures of authority, those men in my life where I feel like those guys have got it down, and I compare myself and I feel like I'm lesser than them. I see them as like, they would kind of never hang out with me. I would never be able to look them in the eye and be one of those guys. And again, I'm going to repeat the cycle. So I'm going to go from the feelings that I just wrote down and then go back up. What do I do when I feel those feelings? With this, what we can see is that we create this self-perpetuating cycle, right? I don't want to feel these things, and so then I do these things. I seek to avoid what's going on here, and by all of these strategies, and then I feel worse about myself. I don't feel like I can trust myself, and then I feel shame, and then I do other things. And so if we were to draw an arrow from how we feel, then what we do, and then what we do to how we feel, it gets worse and worse and worse, and this will just turn into a big swirling tornado mess. And it's hard to get out of, because we are committed in this pattern. When we're parts led, we're basically committed to not feeling something. You are committed to not feeling your fear. You're committed to not feeling that anger, to feeling that shame, that inferiority. So this leads us to ask the question of, how do I go from this perpetuating cycle and pattern to this where I want to be? To understand this in a really important way, we can understand that the parts-led aspect of ourselves are the parts of us that have taken control at some point in our life when we were growing up to avoid feeling the way we did in certain periods or events of our life. We want to avoid feeling shame, we want to avoid feeling the smallness, the fear that we felt at those times. So this is the avoidance strategy, and is riddled with old context, shoulds, shouldn'ts, musts, rule-based behavior, right, wrong, good, bad dichotomies of trying to do the right thing, which is what a child tries to do. There's a way that we live, a way that we should show up, a way that things should be, and they're not. And so that means something about me. I'm a bad person. I'm not good enough. I'm incapable. There is a story there that's playing out. So I want you to have a look now at this pattern that's playing out and give it a title as if it was the title to a film. What is this story? The name of this story. And this is going to be the I am not good enough story. In some way, shape or form, I want you to find the name for this, so that you know when it comes up in your life and you see it, you're like, there it is again, the I'm not good enough story. For me, I'm going to name this the I'm a man-child story. I'll write that at the top of my page. So this story is riddled in shame, not good enough, self-criticism, self-doubt. The self-led story is free from these dichotomies, it's free from shame, and works on wholeness, self-love, and feedback, right? If something's not happening, if I'm doing something and it's creating effect in me or in others in my life, what's going on there, and how can I learn from it, and how do I want to show up? And so to shift from parts-led, where we're repeating old patterns, into self-led, we must enter into a context of love and acceptance. What does that mean? That means, first and foremost, getting curious about why we're doing something, getting curious about why is this pattern playing out, rather than going into self-criticism, frustration, self-doubt. Just asking ourselves the question, like, where did that come from? And you can spend a good bit of time really wondering why this plays out. Where can you see this in your childhood? Where can you remember earlier in your life feeling the certain feelings and thoughts that you had there? What did you create as you were growing up about yourself that, like, I'm not able to do these things? Did you compare to somebody? Did your parents give you certain feedback? Did they not show up for you in a way that you would have loved? in order to understand your own wholeness, validity, worthiness. And you start to appreciate that. You start to have empathy and compassion for this pattern that's playing out. And this is where tuning into our sadness is so important, because there is a cost to this pattern, which is the next thing I want you to have a look at. What is the cost of me repeating this old pattern in my life? What is the cost to my energy, to my finances, to my relationships, to my work, my career, to my hobbies, to my family, the categories in your life that you can think of where there is a cost in you repeating this pattern of behavior. So turn the page and start to write what the cost of the old pattern is. So some of the things that I have written that are the cost of my old pattern are the sadness and regret of untapped potential, unfinished projects, time wasted not showing up fully, not earning as much as I could, and thus my future family not having the finances that we dreamed of that would enable the life that we want to live, having to work more because of that, and then not being able to be with my family as much, my friends, doing the hobbies that I care about and that are important to me, that I love, not being able to trust myself to follow through, avoiding to commit to things so that I don't let people down or let myself down, and the people I love having to make room for me, having to tolerate the fact that I'm late or that I didn't follow through on what I said I would do, and being disappointed in me for not being able to trust me and not being able to really trust my word. I feel stressed. There's a cost of my energy because I've said yes to too many things to please others, because I haven't been clear on what I want, and the quality of my work being lower than my standard and lower in itself, and so my clients not getting such a quality service that I would like, and ultimately missing out. And that's just a few of those things. And take your time here with this to really feel the pain of your old pattern, and not to punish yourself, but to really come into contact with the result and the outcome, the effect of this old pattern, because that pain is a catalyst for you digging into your conscious anger to say, I don't want to repeat this. This matters to me. There's something here that I want to do differently so that I create different results in my life. And so this is an invitation to you to feel sad, to feel that pain, and to allow that to really land and sink in. Take your time as well to understand how you created that, how that's turned out, how that's happened, why that would make sense that you have created this pattern in your life. To have a little bit of tenderness and empathy and compassion for the part of you that feels afraid of feeling all of this. Ultimately, this comes down to you being afraid to feel your feelings. So that takes me on to how we can shift to being self-led. There's two things that are important here with the feelings that we're feeling from the parts, which is being able to make room for the fear that you're feeling, being able to make room for the feelings that are there. That literally looks like taking 3 slow breaths. Yeah, I'm feeling afraid. Feel it here, my diaphragm contraction. I'm scared of what other people will think. I'm scared of disappointing them. I'm scared of letting myself down. So when we make room for these feelings that we're feeling, you can imagine it's like expanding a room that has a ball in it. When the room is tiny, the ball takes up the whole room. When we create space for our feelings, the ball size stays the same, but the space that the ball has a lot more, and so then there's space for other things to come in, like aligning to the things that we want to create in our life. Space for compassion, space for understanding, rather than the self-criticism and self-doubt that usually comes in after the feelings that we have and the patterns that we play out. So it's compassion, empathy, making room for those feelings, and then with that, kind of taking that with you like you would take your own son or daughter in your arms, then realigning to the types of thoughts and feelings that this man, the self-led man, would think. So you can think about, what does he think? What would he say to this part of me that's feeling worried, that's feeling insecure? How would he show up? How would he treat himself? What would he do in this moment? And so you're making room for the stuff that inevitably comes up with pursuing a life that's fully lived, for going after your dreams. And you're loving yourself enough to allow a space for what's there in order to then commit to the things that are important to you, to then generate the emotion, the energy, this stuff here, self-led man, tuning into that state, raising your vibration, and then doing the things that move you towards what it is that you want to achieve. And you can start with either raising your vibration and going after it from that place of like, I'm gonna make this happen, or maybe it's a softening, or maybe it's a tuning in or intuition. And you can come with it by starting to do it, starting to show up, and then the feelings that you have from showing up then start to create a positive spiral upwards, where you start to then create the pattern of being more who you want to become. So undoing the old pattern requires empathy, requires compassion, requires softness, requires taking yourself out of the old context of shame, blame, self-criticism, right, wrong, and into a new context of self-love, of getting feedback, of tuning in. What can I do here? What's really going on for me? Paying attention, and ultimately learning who you are. Ultimately taking this as an experiment into what's really going on for you, and wondering, how could I be showing up in a way that feels fucking good for me?